So yeah, I mean, first things first, Annie's just said, but I am by no means a PPC expert. You could be forgiven for thinking so because I'm here at ppc.live and in front of a lot of PPC experts from what I imagine, and I also work for a PPC agency, so it would kind of make sense if I were one, but actually I'm a generalist of about 11 years, so I've worked in SEO, social media, web, CRM. The only thing I haven't worked on is a PPC account, actually. So some people might describe me as a jack of all trades and a master of none, as everyone's heard that, right? Yeah, okay, good. I want you to keep this quote in mind because I'll be coming back to it a little bit later on. I think it's a bit self-deprecating, really, this quote, and I'm sure other people refer to it as well, but I wouldn't say that I've never had the opportunity to be a master of any. I think that there have been times where I've specialised in a specific role. There have been times where I've been able to dive a little bit deeper into certain areas, but ultimately what I really love about marketing is being able to dip my toe in a little bit of everything and understand the full funnel. So, as I said previously, I'm very aware of my audience. I'm aware that you guys are in PPC, so I don't want this to be too controversial or ruffle too many feathers, but PPC is not always the main character. I know, what? Shock, I know. Look, let's be honest, guys. I know, I'm so sorry. We know the effectiveness of PPC, right? We know that it drives results. We know that ROI is easy to track and how performance can be used and data can be used to drive future success. And it's also really, really tangible. So it's black and white compared to other marketing channels that, from my experience, it's taken years and years for me to understand that there's really no way 100% to know how they're performing at times. So really, no marketing channel is the main character. They're all important. They all have their own roles in the full funnel. And I'm a really positive person by nature. So my kind of utopia would be that we can all work together and attribution is perfect. But I know that that's not the case. And I know that actually most of the time we're all fighting for that attribution and, you know, kind of telling each other where to go. But for the next 15 to 20 minutes at least, I'd like us all to think bigger than just PPC or just clicks. Rather than competing with other channels, I think we should try and understand them and understand the content that goes into them to drive growth, to drive success, and also how they benefit our clients and customers. Business is changing. Annie spoke about the word of the year, of the century, right? AI. And a lot of it's out of our control, but we know that marketing needs to follow suit. So before I move on, I'm Steph. I'm marketing director at Circus. I recently got promoted. Yeah, clap if you want. Yay! And for anyone that doesn't know Circus PPC, it's kind of in the name. We're a specialist PPC agency and we're based up in Leeds. So we've taken the trip down today to be here. And we focus on results, relationships and expertise. And we try our best to become an extension of our clients' teams and deliver the best possible PPC performance. But today, I'm not really going to be talking that much about PPC and more so, like I said, the entire marketing mix. And we're going to be focusing on not just clicks, but actually the entire marketing ecosystem. And more specifically, I'm going to be going through the 4 content pillars that I focus on when designing a marketing strategy. So getting on to the 4 content pillars. Growth, authority, connection, and promotion. And right now, I know that they just look like 4 random words on the screen, but don't worry, I'm going to get into each one individually. So for me, if content fits into one or more of these pillars, it has purpose, it has some sort of intent, and it's somewhat strategic, whether you meant for it to be or not. And going downwards, this could be seen as an example of a funnel, right? So growth is awareness. Authority and connection is the research and consideration period, and promotion is the purchase and the point of sale, that conversion. So let's start with growth. How do we reach new audiences? So traditionally, when we speak about growth, we think about business and we think about monetary value, we think about revenue, we think about ROI and the gain at the end. However, it can also be things like awareness, visibility, and presence. Growth content often sits at the upper funnel, and the metrics that we use to measure it are engagement, reach, and impressions. We're not directly selling, but we're building presence, we're building trust, and we're building the community. One of the best examples of growth content that I think is personally effective is social media. We see so many social media influencers start from the bottom up, right? Think of the example of Molly May. She is a great example of growth content and how it pays off. She went on to one of the biggest shows in the UK, right, Love Island, and obviously that was appealing to a mass audience. But then she continued that community, she continued that growth, and now she's a multimillionaire and she owns 2 very successful businesses. Another great example of growth content on social media that I really loved, very recent actually, was this from the NHS. Did everyone know that Travis and Taylor got engaged?
True.
No? No? I mean, I guess anyone that's on LinkedIn, anyone that is alive, has social media, probably knew about this. But, I'm not going to comment on the political side of it, the, potential sensitivity of the post, but this is a great example of how sometimes brands jumping onto bandwagons isn't a bad thing. They got backlash, I like to think that they knew they were going to get a bit of bad backlash, but they also got loads of positivity, loads of praise for how they approached this and making things more accessible for a bigger audience of people. Big brands get a lot of slack for jumping on the bandwagon, and we all do. Oftentimes I hear a lot of people talking about how we should only post things that are totally relevant to our brand, but I kind of disagree. Sometimes the only way to reach more people is with relevance, and the more relevant you can be, the more people you can reach. Ultimately, what that's going to lead to is a happy algorithm, because there's more engagement, there's more impressions, likes, shares, saves, all of those things that we call vanity metrics. More time spent on the app means that your content is going to get pushed. Moving on to authority. So how do we highlight our USP? So when you do reach this mass audience, and within that there's someone that's interested in your business, it's important to have the evidence to back up who you say you are. It's very similar to, I guess, quality score, and when people click through to an ad, making sure that your landing page is relevant, right? You want people to have that trust in what you're saying and make sure that everything that you are saying is backed up by evidence. Why should they trust you? Why should they trust you more than your competitors? And when I say USP, I'm not talking about uniqueness, the point of we do or we provide something completely different, but it's more about how you deliver it and how you provide it. Authoritative content is like a CV for your business. They're not really far removed from each other. They're the same concepts. Applying for a job and having a CV to do that is very similar to chasing a client or nurturing a client and having the business content to back that up. Think about it like this. References are your testimonials, the experience is your case studies, and your skills are your services. And I don't know if anyone did this, maybe this is an older thing when I first did my CV, but the little bit at the end of the CV that's like hobbies and interests, does everyone do that? And you say the most interesting possible thing, and then you look back at it years later and you're like, I've never been salsa dancing. I've never done that. But that's kind of our cultural content. That's giving your brand a personality. Connection. How do we tell our brand story? And even more importantly, why should people care? People are selfish, especially when they're spending money, and they always focus on what's in it for them. They want to know the outcome, not the process. And the way that we connect with those potential customers is by selling in the benefit, not the actual service. Selling in the why and not the how. So one of my favorite ever examples of connection content is the 2018 John Lewis Christmas advert. Anyone remember it? Yeah, great. Oh my God, amazing advert. You should, if you've not seen it, YouTube it. Honestly, you will not regret it. Anyway, I'm not just sharing this because I am a massive Elton John fan, But for those that haven't seen it, the basic premise is that a little boy is gifted a piano for his birthday and he grows up to become the great Elton John. Perfect, great story, right? And this didn't only evoke emotion, but we know from the stats that it worked. The week that this ad went live in November of 2018, search volume for pianos doubled. And John Lewis created that demand. Going back to authority and, taking the connection away from it, unfortunately, John Lewis created demand that they couldn't keep up with. So I don't know if anyone knew this, but at the time that this advert went live, John Lewis didn't sell pianos. So they drove all this demand, they drove all of this search volume only not to be able to capitalize on it. And I would say that's probably one of also the biggest business mistakes of all time, right? So as much as it was a great piece of connection content, it wasn't great for authority. And sometimes interconnecting those pillars is just as important as focusing on them alone. And finally, let's get on to promotion. So I think similarly, when we spoke about growth earlier, we talk about business growth and we talk about money. It's similar with promotion and how we drive conversions. Conversions to a lot of people, they immediately think of things like sales, things like leads. But it's actually any action that we deem valuable. It's any action that we can get valuable information or assets from. And it comes down to knowing where to restrict what you give away for free. So once people have gone through the funnel, once people have gone through that growth, they've seen the authority, they've connected with you, they trust you, hopefully, right? It's a transactional piece of content. And it's driven by what you know about your audience and also vice versa, what they know about you. So my final example is a little bit of a different one. I was struggling last week to find a piece of promotional content that wasn't like, get your free PPC toolkit or, download our recent webinar. I wanted something a little bit more creative. And I saw this in my inbox. I don't know about anyone else who's in their late 20s, early 30s, but if I see a subject line saying, how old do you really look? I'm clicking on it. I want to know how old people think I look. It's morbid curiosity, it's fun, and they know their audience. I bank with Lloyds. They've already got my information, but they still hooked me. They still pulled me in. And equally, that age is also the age where we're far away enough from retirement to not think about it too much. But, we hear our peers talking about it and it's like, am I putting enough in? Am I putting enough of a percentage in? So it was using the information that they had really, really effectively and positioning themselves as the value giver. And the transaction in this case was information on whether it was valuable to me, whether I was going to click through and go through the process. So, recapping, the 4 content pillars. Growth. How do we reach those new target audiences? We spoke about the example of the NHS and how sometimes jumping on the bandwagon isn't such a bad thing. We spoke about authority, having a USP and how we deliver that to our customers or our clients, potential clients, and having the evidence to back that up using authoritative content as essentially our CV. Connection, how do we tell our brand story? And most importantly, selling in the benefits and not just the products. Then we have promotion, which we've just spoken about. Conversions, and also conversions not necessarily being sales or leads, but just being valuable actions that you want your customers to take. Everyone remembers the quote I said earlier, right? Yeah? Someone shout it out?
Yeah. Jack of all trades, master of none.
Now, I only found this out maybe about a year ago, and some of you might know this already, but it's actually a shortened quote. It's not the full quote, and I think it ties nicely into what I'm trying to say, but Jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. And by no means am I saying that me being a marketing generalist is better than being an expert, because that would be the wrong audience to say that to, wildly rude. However, I think that if there's one takeaway that I could give to everyone. It's that think about the bigger picture, sometimes take a step back, look at PPC and how well it's doing, but also think about how you can help drive your clients' business outcomes by knowing and understanding what's going on elsewhere in their marketing strategy. Thank you.